Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Story. Hopefully, this time we'll be able to finish.
Here. Good.
Yeah. Well, I will say I don't know if you can see it right behind me, but that's my modem right there. So should have no connection issues. But anyway, so I'm Daniel Parker. I'm the writer creator on Angels Awakening, which is fairly close to fulfillment. I know some backers in Europe still are waiting on theirs. Should be hopefully be getting those soon. And I'm also got another book, which is the follow up, Guardian Angel. Stay tuned for that. Pages are in the works, and mailing list is coming soon.
Featuring adventures of the spoiler.
Yes, spoiler. And of course, joining me as always, my partner in crime, Darth Bobcat.
Hey. So I have exciting news. On Monday, the third book in my Magpie Wizard series launched. haven't gotten any response yet, but of course it takes Amazon a couple of days to process any reviews or ratings that anyone did drop.
Mm-hmm.
This one was kind of interesting to write because this was originally the first third or so of the book 3 that I posted online in web serial form. I ended up having to split it up because so an average novel is between 70 and 100,000 words. Book 3, as originally posted, was 220,000. Because I just accepted at some point, I did not know how long my outline would take to execute. So right around where I was like, yeah, and this will be the nice opening first act. Oh, oh no, this is very different. Or this is I'm around 70,000 words here, and I have a bunch more book to go through. So this time around, Soren, aka the Devil Malthus, has to. He's basically inducted into a terrorist organization of devil haters. Irony.
Mm-hmm.
And he's given his first assignment, which is to kill Haru Obe, a character who was also a member of that group who he defeated in the previous book. And it's basically, the thing is, he's actually feeling a lot of sympathy welling up in him just because of, basically he knows these people too well to actually gladly assassinate anybody. Also, he isn't really an assassin per se. So he has this moral quandary. The clear, smart thing to do is to kill Haru to save his own skin, but will he?
And if you want to find that out, get this book.
Yep. And also, if you haven't picked it up yet, book 1 is on sale for $1 this week, or £1 in the UK. I don't know why Amazon doesn't let you do sales in other regions. So if you're in the EU or Australia or any Latin America or wherever else, sorry that they don't love you.
And and also too, I know this book isn't in print yet, or the printed or the physical edition is still a work in progress.
It's been miserable. It's
yeah.
like it's the stupidest thing where I gave it the same exact outputs that everything else did, and that worked for print books that I revised at the start of October. And they turned out just fine. Daniel showed me the evidence himself recently.
Here they are.
And yet I load book 3, or I load any file with those parameters into the book 3 thing on Amazon's back end, and just nope, we're just going to be completely outside the lines. I was like, and their technical support was completely useless. So it's just as somebody who works in tech support myself, I am disappointed. I give much more care to people telling me, oh, my unit that I bought in 1993 is out. Can I buy a new one? It's like, no.
No.
Sidebar. One time I was on a web chat with somebody. It's like, hello, I bought this unit in 1994 and it's broken. Yes, unfortunately, we no longer make that one. Well, are you going to compensate me? You got 25 years of use out of it.
Yeah.
In the electronics industry, we call this a unicorn.
Yeah, I was about to say, jeez.
I won't say what my company is, but for my day job, but the stuff we make, you've probably seen around, but just haven't ever thought to look at it. But it's just a lot of that old stuff tends to last forever.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's planned obsolescence sometimes doesn't always work.
Yeah. Speaking of going on forever, that's enough introduction. Let's get into our topic today.
Yes,
A
let's.
seamless segue.
Yes. So so for this, I wanted to talk about finding the motivation for writing a story. If it's because let's face it, as writers, from time to time, we kind of hit a slump, or we hit a block, and we're just like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't feel like doing that, or you just don't know what to do, and so and for a multitude of reasons. In my case, recently I've had a lot of life stuff. I've, of course, moved to a new state and new city, and trying to get everything set up, for my new life here, and it's kind of killed a little bit of the productivity for me. But now I'm kind of in the phase where, okay, I got to get back into working.
Yep.
Yeah, and so what I've been trying to do is just uh in whatever downtime I have, watching a TV show or watching a movie, or even a documentary, and just kind of letting my creative mind start clicking again, and then I'll start thinking of something, and that usually works for me. And so that's what I've been doing for the last few days.
Yep. Now, before I give my response, so is it Dr. Hino or D Rhino?
Good
Yeah.
question. I want to. I would say D Rhino.
That does make more sense, although there are a lot of weebs online. So, so someone calling
Yes.
themselves
Yes.
Dr. Hino could make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, while we await your answer,
Okay. Either
come
one
on,
is
man.
fine.
It's either
All right.
one or the other. Anyway,
Yeah.
uh, so I would say that so this one isn't. So it sounds like we're not necessarily talking so much about, say, writer's block, and more like those dark tea times of the soul where you're just like, what am I doing here?
Hmm.
Which those are different. Like writer's block, in my experience, it usually happens when either I'm just like completely exhausted or just in a completely awful mood, or just something is like impinging on me, or it happens when I sit down and I'm trying to make a character do something that they would not do, or that I don't know what to do.
Hmm.
I mean, like a lack of planning usually.
Yeah.
Now, what you're talking, like I guess what Daniel's talking about, I have to remember I'm reversed now. I'm
Yeah.
actually visible, which is a strange experience
Yeah.
after 20 episodes with no webcam.
Yeah.
But yeah, what you're talking about is definitely, it's kind of more like a malaise almost. It's
Hmm.
like you get used to it. It's like so have you ever like done any sort of sustained like working out or going to the gym or whatnot, and then you take a little time off, and the next time you go back, it's like, come on, body, it's been a week. Why is this so hard?
Yeah.
You used to do this in 10 minutes. Why is it taking 15? Or uh, we were up to 25 pounds. Why are you complaining about the 10-pound warm up?
Yeah. Yeah. That's happened. Yeah.
Your writing is also is like a muscle like that, where it's like it can take a bit to ramp up again if you've let it ramp down. Uh,
Right.
And
Yeah.
I definitely agree with your advice there, because you can also hit a point where you might be like in your head a little too much, especially in during pandemic times,
Hmm.
where before, just being around people, even if you're kind of just at the mall wandering around, or at a restaurant or whatever, you can pick up snippets of conversation. You can try to imagine, I wonder what she's like, or I wonder what he's like, or if that person was a character, what would I do with them?
Hmm.
Which it sparks ideas. So definitely kind of piggybacking on other people's writing, and just like watching it and going, huh, that's a cool idea, wonder what twist I could put on it. It can be very helpful.
Yeah, yeah, and that's usually what I do, and particularly with blocks is I'll just I'll sit down and I'll watch or if I'm trying to think of a story idea, I'll watch like a movie or a show or whatever, or a documentary, and think about like the characters that I have in mind and go, okay, well, how would they handle this situation, or how would they go about solving this problem, and and then I just go from there, and then and typically I'll come up with a kind of a similar scenario, or something maybe even completely different entirely, and then just you know because that's the thing with the writing process is you might start with an idea, but then it'll just kind of take on a life of its own, and then it becomes something that you weren't expecting it to become.
Oh yeah, I got loads of examples of that. Like Magpie Wizard started off as a ridiculous parody series. The Sociopath at Magic High was my original title for it, and all the characters were going to be awful. And then after like a bit of writing on the original draft, I was like, oh, I actually like these people. I think I'll scale it back a little bit and just make it like an actual series instead of a one-off parody thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and believe it or not, Guardian Angel started off as a space adventure.
Really?
Hmm. Yeah,
It was
spoiler,
psychic
spoiler.
powers, or
A little bit. It was actually it was more akin to Mass Effect.
okay.
Yeah, and then but then I decided, well, there are plenty of space adventure stuff out there. I wanted to kind of try to do something a little different, and
Mhm.
then I started looking at the works of Michael Crichton, and um, you know, kind of do some, and also Vince Flynn. I don't know if you've heard of Vince Flynn.
I haven't now.
He's kind of he was kind of like a Tom Clancy esque, uh,
Okay.
political thrillers. He had actually a little bit of Jessica is based off of his protagonist. Mitch Rapp was his name. He was a CIA assassin. But but yeah, I mean, and I just kind of went from there, and then just kind of started developing it, and then looked at like, oh, well, what if they had psychic abilities? Okay, well, you know who would a psychic's what would who would their enemies be? And like, well, what about elementals? And then that's and then at first it was going to be mad. I was going to do like a kind of like a magic thing, like a magic system, kind of like what you had with what you have with Magpie. And then I kind of went, no, that seems a little complicated. So just
I'll let you out on a secret. Once you establish a few rules, you can make things up as you go. it, it's like it just not to derail what you're saying, because that is like really interesting, because like that's just not total that's totally not what I would have expected, just having read the comic.
Mhm,
But it's like once I have a couple of rules for my magic system, which is, here's how you cast a spell. Magic cannot do this. Like it can't create matter. Once you
mhm,
have that rule, that suddenly really constrains what magic can do. And
mhm,
sometimes you can. And also, the nice thing about it being at a magic school, Well, I can have characters learn spells off camera because they're in school.
Ah, yeah.
Uh, I can just have a character. Now it can be a little bit of a butt pull sometimes, but I try to make it so that like any new spell I make up or any new spell I add isn't so overpowered that you would wonder, well, why don't they use this spell every day?
Hmm.
Why has it only just come up?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, you don't want it to be a just absolutely horrible Deus Ex Machina and just like, oh, jeez, come on,
Yeah.
man.
Also, hey Marci, it's nice to see you. It's been a while since we had you on the stream.
Yeah, good
And
to see you.
and D Rhino, I'll stick with that. Thanks for coming in today.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I yeah, I played the crap out of the Mass Effect trilogy. It's it's addictive.
And I'm kind of where you're at, D Rhino. Um, the characters are the fun part, and then it's just a matter of making it happen.
Hmm.
Uh, There's almost a level where you can, once you have a character's base personality down, you could almost put them in any scenario.
Hmm.
Uh, Like I'm sure that you know Jessica well enough that if you wanted to write a story about her becoming a pirate in the 17th century, you would know how she would respond in a bunch of situations.
Yeah, yeah. She would probably probably be very very probably cautious, but also not afraid to lay down the hammer if she needs to.
hmm Uh, would she be a pirate queen?
Probably. Yeah.
But and so now let's kind of, and I keep derailing things, so let's
That's
go
okay.
back.
That's okay.
Uh, But honestly, here's like the weirdest thing that I've discovered about writing.
Mhm.
Time is actually your enemy. Which sounds strange. Like, wait, if I have 6 hours to write in, I'll get more writing done. Uh, uh, I'll get more writing done than I would in 1 hour or 2 hours.
Mhm.
But at least this is my experience: is if you have a limited period of time, you're going to use that time more efficiently. It's
Mhm.
like, say if I say, oh, I this morning I'm going to do the dishes and vacuum the floor. Well, yeah, I have until noon to do it, so I think I'll go see what's interesting on Discord, or oh, maybe I'll go chat up Daniel and just say, hey Daniel, check out this cool thing I found, or maybe I'll uh, maybe I'll call somebody or talk with a friend about something, and oh, suddenly it's 11:30 and I have half hour to do what I was planning to do. So I might get it done by noon, but
Yeah.
did I use that morning effectively? No, not especially. So it's almost to your benefit to come up with other things that you have going on besides writing.
Mhm.
Like for example, after work I go on jogs. I have my writing time, which no matter what I do, I seem to do my best writing around somewhere in that 6 to 10 o'clock range. So I just go along with that. Um, and then uh, th- and then I also have a couple of other things that I just do on the regular. That when I'm thinking about it, I'll make a point of, okay, I'm going to read a book for half an hour a day. Uh, and so suddenly that I get home from work. I start have an early job shift, so I get from home from work most days by 4. So it's like, well, I go to bed at 10, so I do have 6 hours to play with, which actually is unintentionally the example I was giving before, but it maths out.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I'm much more efficient if I know, okay, I'm going to be writing from 7 to 9. And that is my writing time, and that is when I will go write, and I can get more done in that 2 hours than I would with an unfocused 6.
Mhm.
Yep, sorry to disappoint you, Rena. That's what I look like.
Hey, Serena. Yeah.
So that would be one of my piece of advice is boomer cat. Boomer cat.
Uh,
Uh,
hey, Marsa had a question for us. See, used to write fan fiction a lot, but started writing my own stories. Now I find it hard to get the motivation to do fan fictions again, just because I feel like I'm wasting time compared to my work on own books and career. Uh, um, so I don't necessarily see that as a negative. If you're working on, if your mind's focused on your own stuff, right, and not on like other people's, I would say you're moving in the right direction.
yeah, I would say. By the way, I still, if anyone can tell me what the phenomena is that makes these entirely ordinary light bulbs look like that in the
So,
background there on this webcam, I would love to know it. Uh,
yeah,
uh, Now, I will say they are different colors of light bulbs just because I bought them at different times. But that should not explain this weird kaleidoscope pattern back here.
I think it looks cool.
Yeah, it does. I just don't understand it. So back to Marsai's question. So that I would say that fan fiction is a good practice tool.
Mhm,
It's a good way to make friends who are also interested in writing or in a particular fandom, but it isn't necessarily something you want to be doing the whole way along.
mhm.
Um, Weirdly enough, I'd almost say if you have a Jones to write some fan fiction, find something in the public domain and make your take on Robin Hood or Wizard of Oz or
Sherlock Holmes.
right. The
Yeah,
Sherlock Holmes, you got to be careful. Some of those
yeah, that's
books are
true.
public domain, some of them aren't.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's actually kind of a weird thing. So, like, assuming that they don't punt out the public domain thing again, Batman and Superman are going to come up for public domain in 20. Is it it's either 2027 or 2037 or
Mm,
2038? Because I think it's right now like 100 years or so.
mm,
Um, but so we'll just go with 2027 just so let's say that's 2027 and you want to make your own Batman story. The trouble is that uh, the trademark for Batman isn't going to expire. So DC would still have the right to make, that you couldn't call your story Batman really,
mhm,
and you wouldn't be able to use anything in your Batman story that wasn't introduced in that year. It's like no Alfred, no Robin, no Commissioner Gordon, no
mhm.
Joker, no Riddler. Just you basically have purple gloves Batman and who wields a gun because he was a shadow knockoff to start with, and maybe a bat auto gyro, and that would be about it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, yeah.
so it's like so I would say like I would go back further. Like okay, maybe I'll read the Scarlet Pimpernel or just some other old stuff and just see if I can come up with to see if it sparks anything. Even better if you
Uh,
can, which that isn't actually an awful idea for uh, turning that fan fiction Jones into something productive. Because if you write your own Scarlet Pimpernel book, I believe that's a 19th century book because it was like about a guy saving people from the French Revolution. So
mhm.
uh, that would actually be like a random one off the top of my head to go look into.
Yeah.
Um, Now, to be basically think of it as fan fiction. Your I got it. Fan fiction is working out on a rowing machine. Writing your own fiction is taking a rowboat across the river.
Mm,
Uh, and it's and so it built up your muscle memory. It built up your skill. You now know a lot more about writing, and you had that help of having the original characters to go off of. It made you some friends. It got you some attention, but it's not anything that you can sell on your own. So there's a level where I hate to call it a waste of time, but it can be past a certain point.
mhm. Yeah, at a certain point, you gotta, you've got to make the money, and
Hmm.
the only way you're going to be able to make the money is if you're doing your own, telling your own stories with your own characters.
or write fan fiction about public domain.
Oh yeah, that too.
But again, just basically, if it's from the 19th century, you're probably safe.
Yeah. I would also throw I'd throw King Arthur and Camelot and Knights
Oh
of the
yeah,
Round Table in there too.
that'd be a good one to do too.
Yeah.
Or Don Quixote if you wanted to be ridiculous for a bit. Fun fact, that was actually one of the first. So that was one of the first novels, if not the first novel, written in I
Mm.
want to say the 17th century. It was so popular that there was actually a bunch of fan fiction that was published about it, with people making up their own Don Quixote stories, most of which were awful and have not survived. So that in the second book that Cervantes wrote, he actually refers to a bunch of knockoff. Like Don Quixote is actually talking about how there were people who were making up stories about him that didn't count.
Yeah.
So it just shows you that there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah. Yeah. But I will say, like, writing fan fiction, that can be a good motivating thing to do. Like we said, get your writing muscle going, and
Mhm.
like you were saying, and then then you can then be able to play off of that and go over to your own stuff.
Plus, Marseille, correct, you were mostly doing fan fiction about Ruby, right?
Mm. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know anything about Ruby. I never watched it.
It kind of turned into Rubish over time, but
Mm.
tish.
Yeah.
Uh, but uh, I'm going to go with that assumption because I believe that I feel bad about this, but it's like people under different names in different discords in different places, and I'm pretty sure I know who you are on the Ruby stuff that we are on, but I've okay, yeah, okay, you are who I think you are. Again, you have too many pseudonyms out there. Sorry, but but back on point. Uh, but I will say that most of the Ruby fan fiction I've ever seen anybody discussing is almost indistinguishable from original fiction anyway, because they always just like make up their own takes on the characters anyway. If you're thinking of Ruby AU, just start with that as alternate universe for those who aren't in the fan fiction circles.
Mm.
Just come up with your idea and then erase the names and replace them with your own. You've basically done the same thing.
Yeah. Sort of like 50 Shades of Grey.
Yes, although with probably a little less BDSM,
Yeah.
just a touch, just a
Just
touch.
just a little. Yeah. Ugh.
But now I will also say that to go back to the larger topic of motivation, like I said, it sounds contradictory. Time is you would think more time means more time to write, but you probably have about you have X amount of energy in any given day to be productive with, and
Mhm,
so it's like, well, do you want to do that? Do you want to expend that energy over a long period or a short period?
mhm.
One of the things I do, and uh, Marseille, I forget if I ever invited you to the Reddit Serials Discord. Hit me up later if you want in. There's this thing they do there called sprints, which is basically you go through and you have a time period. It's like, okay, I'm starting with X words. We're sprinting for 20 minutes. Here's how many words I got down. And just doing that is actually really nice because it forces you to go, 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 go. And there's usually a couple other people sprinting with you. So it's like a mild race. When I say mild, it's not like, oh man, they beat me by 1 word per minute. You're not going to be too offended by that. It's just like a way to do it together and feel like you're not off there by yourself.
Right. Yeah, and there's another little technique that I did when I was in elementary school in a creative writing like workshop thing that we did where we had like a journal, and I think it was like they'd tell us like for like 10 like 5 or 10 minutes just write stuff down in the journal, like doesn't just doesn't matter, don't and just put pen to paper, just start writing, don't stop writing, just keep writing, and even if it doesn't make any sense, or you know, or whatever it is, just write. Sometimes that can work, sometimes it can't.
Let's see. Let's see here. So time is your enemy. The other, so I don't know if this is you, but I know that I have that little jerk in my head who's constantly telling me, "Ah, this is just crap. You're weird and cringe. This is a dumb story. You're dumb. Everything you do is dumb. Why do you bother? You're never gonna, you know, you're never gonna make a story that anyone will actually care about."
Yeah, yeah, it's like the devil on your shoulder, you know. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That happens. That happens to me very frequently.
yeah. So that little voice in your head is it is simultaneously your friend and your enemy. Because if you don't have that voice at all, well, you're writing Marvel comics about characters sitting around having breakfast and maybe they go punch a villain at the end. $5, please, for 22 pages of this.
Yes.
Um, like if you don't have any filter, if you don't have any doubt in your head, you're going to go do awful stuff. But it's like how if you're in a car, if the brake is shoved down all the way, you're going to go nowhere. But if you never touch the brake, you're eventually going to crash.
Mhm.
So you got to give, you can't kill that little voice, but you can definitely spite it. Like,
Yeah.
there, see, I got a nice review. Or see, somebody told me they liked this character. Somebody told me they liked that scene. Somebody
Mhm.
told me that, of course, there is always the possibility that you just suck, which everybody does to start with.
Mhm.
And some people never quite get out of sucking, like, well, the people who keep writing comics about the X-Men sitting around having breakfast.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, and it's and I had the kind of the same thing as well. With when I was writing Angels Awakening, I'm sitting there going, "Oh God, is this any good? Am I doing this right? What's because." And I had an editor, and she said, "Oh no, this is
Yeah,
yes, yes, sir."
Bendis is the complete absence of that voice. Although partially it's because it's the George Lucas problem where you get too powerful and nobody is actually in a position to stop you.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's why, like, I mean, like I said, I have an editor. I know, Bobcat. I think you've got
I
an
got some
editor
beta
too.
readers
You got
and
some.
I I challenge my ideas a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So we have people to keep us in check, and I think that's obviously very, I would say, an important part of the process, because you have another set of eyes reading your story and saying, yeah, this is really good. I like where you're going with this. And then other times you'd be like, well, why are they doing that? Why are
Right.
they in this
Yeah,
situation? What
this
why
needs
you're
some punching up. Why do we care about this?
Yeah, yeah. Which is actually, which is a really good thing, because that forces you to get better.
Right. And when you have an editor like that, so there's useful criticism and not useful criticism, and it takes time to figure out which is which. So, for example, on my Rose uh, Rose book, which is currently being posted on Royal Road, shill shill shill, Saga of the Storm Wizard, shill shill shill.
Shall, shall?
Uh, I got my first formal review on there, and the guy's like, "Oh, this is basically a YA novel. Oh, it's all right, but not my thing." It's like, okay, so you think that there's not any problems. You have not gotten to the part where the spoiler alert, she is captured by an evil brainwashing cult. This is called setup. Um, that's like, okay, yeah, that's a fair enough attitude. On the other hand, one of his comments just makes me smile because so Magpie Wizard is set in a world where an army of demons have taken over most of the world. So humans still have like Japan, Malaysia, Australia, basically the islands, right?
Mhm.
His comment is, his comment was, well, if all the airports been blown up, where are the planes landing? It's like they have airports in Japan and Malaysia.
Mhm.
I intentionally made a point of looking up the airports I name dropped.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is not useful criticism. Saying that maybe it takes a little too long to get going, that is potentially useful criticism if you hear it more than one place.
Mhm.
Um, you also have to go, what kind of a story are you making? Um, so, for example, my phone here is an awful laptop. I mean, there's no keyboard, there's no Ethernet jack, there's one little USB-C right here. That's not nearly enough if I need to charge my phone off of it.
Mhm.
To which I would then say, well, yeah, because the phone is not a laptop; it is a phone. uh, but yeah, but I really wanted to read a laptop today. Like, well, I'm sorry. Guess you'll have to. Guess I'll have to go find somebody making laptops.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you, buddy.
Yeah. It's only so much. Yeah. 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 And I kind of had like a, so far with with Angel's Awakening, I think like most of as far as with the writing is concerned, like some of the criticism I heard was like, um, you know, uh, that Jessica, might not be necessarily be a leading character, that she might not have, there might not be enough, of a there for her to carry a story, which I say, well, stay tuned. uh but there was another criticism I thought might have been pretty valid, which was and was with Sky, that she didn't seem as much of a threat to Jessica as she probably could have been. Um, and mainly just because Jessica had figured out a weakness with Sky, and that she was able to exploit a
Hmm.
couple of times. If you've read Angel's Awakening, you know what I'm talking about. Um, and so that's something for me to keep in mind. Now, if they just if I get now, thankfully this hasn't happened yet, but if I get somebody who just says, well, your story's shit, or pardon my language, and you don't you stink at writing. I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Even really negative reviews can still give you things to look at.
Hmm.
It's just you have to distinguish between, oh, my phone sucks because the battery lasts 2 minutes it and it breaks really easily, versus your phone is an awful laptop.
Yeah. 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 And the other thing too, and and that's one of those things that you can't really. It's easy for me. This is easy for me to say, but you can't let that stuff kill your money, kill any motivation you have.
Right. And that can be very hard. That's part of also why it's good to have other things that you do with your time. Just because, um, if you make your whole, like, let's say that you did just blatantly ignored my advice. No, I get home from work and I write for 6 hours, and everything I do is writing. I have nothing else going on besides writing. And somebody says your writing sucks, and that's a huge blow because you have nothing else going on. On the
Right.
other hand, if maybe you're a little bit more amateur, and it's like your first story is not going to be wonderful. Just laying that out there. First story is going to need some heavy rewrites, but uh, you write your first story, but you have other things going on. You might be in a club, maybe you have some friends you go hang out with, maybe
Yeah.
you've been bouncing ideas off of your friends as you've been going along, which is helped strengthen them a bit. And you get to the end, you post your first story, like, this story is awful. It's like, well, it's not the end all be all of my being.
Hmm.
It's not what I've built my entire life upon.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would also say as well, like, if you are if if you are one of those people who are like, oh, I'm gonna write for 6 hours a day, and then you hear from people that you're not very good. I mean, there are um, there are tools for you to get good. I mean,
Mhm.
you can take a, if you've got some extra money, you can take a writing class. You know, you can do a master class. I mean, there are a bunch of, these master
Mhm.
classes that are done by different writers. You know, you could, you know, do one of those. I found those to be pretty informative. I did I did James Patterson's master class, which was, that was pretty interesting. Just, even though I wasn't writing mysteries, but it was just, he was able to, uh, parlay some techniques and things that can be very helpful. Um, so I mean, there is that. It's not hopeless, you know.
Right. Another thing I would say is that you're best off reading some books both in your genre and outside of your genre that you're writing in.
Mhm,
Just hypothetically, let's say that you're writing a adventure story. Uh, it might actually behoove you to go out there and find some adventure stories that people actually, you could even look up on Amazon. You could like, okay, I'm going to buy 3 adventure stories, or I'm going to read 3 adventure stories on Kindle Unlimited. I'm going to find one that people rate an average of 5 stars, one people rate an average of 3 stars, one people rate an average of 1 star, and just maybe see what the difference is. It's like, what? Okay, am I more like, what makes it a 1 star? Is it just, I don't know, is it is it technique? Is it content? Is what is dragging it down? What do people say is dragging it down?
mhm,
Because maybe you have a story where it's like, well, the premise is good, but I don't like any of the characters. Okay, why wouldn't people like the characters? Because that's part of the being in your own head too much, is that excuse me, being in your own head too much, you can absolutely love a character, and why that character has depth and greatness, but maybe you've just completely forgotten, to actually make the audience aware of that.
mhm.
Maybe it's like, oh, well, in the 5th book, you find out what her deal is.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
why would I read through the first 4 books if I hate the character?
Mhm.
Also, I will be right back. This will just take a sec.
Sure.
Go ahead and keep on.
Yep. So, actually, does anyone have any quick questions they would like to ask? Since we got a little minute here. If not, I have another thing to discuss, to mention. Um, and it kind of goes back to what Bobcat was saying about time. Um, I've found that, you know you like Bobcat was saying, pick a productive time to write, and um, and then, because that's usually when you'll probably get most of your work done. Um, and for me, that's usually in the afternoons, and I've found that I can actually write more in, like, if I'm sitting down for like a couple of hours than I could for, like, all day. So, yeah, it definitely, carve out a time for yourself that where you'll probably be the most productive, and you'll probably be stunned at how much you get done.
Yep, and I caught the tail end of that, and yeah, it's like, no matter what I do, I never really write in the morning, even if I have the day off from work, and it's like, I'm going to write today. It's like, well, I guess it's around 2 o'clock. I guess I'm in the writing frame of mind.
Hmm.
Where there are other people who it's like, oh, I'm going to wake up 2 hours before I have to go to work and write during that time when I'm at my freshest. Which
Yeah.
those people are insane. Although I guess it's different if you're starting your workday at 9 versus starting your workday at 7, like I do.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So I was trying to remember what were you saying before?
So what was I saying before? I don't
Uh,
know, man. I was just saying it. I don't think
yeah,
about
yeah,
it. Just comes out.
yeah.
But
It was. We were talking about criticism. We'll
well,
just.
well,
Yeah.
the other thing is that you just have to acknowledge that you're not going to write your first book, have it be perfect on the first draft, get it published, and sell 1 million copies, and retire to Tahiti.
Hmm.
Uh, that's that's like extremely. You got to have realistic expectations. Like a realistic expectation is, I'm going to write my first book and I'm going to sell 100 copies in my first year. Like that's if you self-publish,
Hmm.
or I'm going to write a book and I'm going to submit it to publishers. And it might take me a little bit and some revisions until somebody takes it.
Hmm.
Or I'm going to write a bunch of stories and uh, so like let's say that I'm going to write a short novel over the next 3 months and I'm going to hone that into something that's sellable. It's like baby steps. It's like the kind of the writer's dream of, I'm going to write a book and now I can quit my day job.
Hmm.
That's the equivalent of, you know what? I've never played basketball before, but I'm pretty sure if I go onto the court, I'm going to be the next Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I've never played football before, but I'm pretty sure if I go on the football field, I'll be just like Tom Brady. Yeah,
Yep.
I'm not gonna. No.
No. And to be fair, very few people are Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's true.
Just the one that I'm aware of.
Yeah,
But
he's kind of one of a kind. Yeah,
to use the analogy, even if you have like a middling career in football, if you save your money, you're probably still a millionaire.
yeah, yeah. Sorry to skid talk on that a little bit, but I mean, probably one of the best jobs in football is a backup quarterback.
Everyone loves you.
Yeah, well, yeah, everyone loves you. You're probably making maybe $3 million a year, and you're just standing around holding a clipboard. That's that's
Uh,
that's all you do.
Now, in theory, I'm sure they have to be like doing a lot more during practice than you see them doing. But
They are. Yeah, they are. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
yeah,
yeah, it's like, oh, okay.
yeah, it's uh, now unfortunately no such position exists in writing.
No, no, yeah,
Uh,
you've got to do the work.
yeah, but it's just like maybe 10 years into it, you have one that strikes big. And here's kind of the interesting thing. In self-publishing circles, there's this 20 for 50,000 mantra I've heard said, which I don't think is entirely true. But the basic theory is that if you can have 20 self-published books on Kindle, you build an audience over time. At that point, you can. It seems to happen a lot where people can start getting 50,000 a year in revenue
Mhm.
because the theory, and again, it requires a certain level of popularity, but it's like every book you come out with is another one in your library. It's another chance for you to get noticed.
Yeah.
It's a chance for, and maybe somebody stumbles across this book, and the next time you put your book on sale, Amazon gives them a helpful ding, ding, an author you've bought from before, so and so, just put their book on sale.
Hmm.
Like I know that, so I always buy my books on Amazon just so that I can always see what the audience is seeing, just in case there's a horrible problem with the file. Um, and Amazon did give me that helpful ding yesterday. An author you follow, D. Benjamin Fassbinder, has put out a book. So it's like the more people who have bought one of your books, even if it isn't in that series, the more chance somebody might go, "Oh, I really enjoyed this book series. Eh, well, maybe I'll give that one a shot."
Yeah.
Also, sometimes you make one big thing and then, or you make one thing, it doesn't go anywhere. Then you make something and hit it big, and then afterwards, you make it. Yeah, that becomes big afterwards. That was said very intelligently. Like the guy who wrote Sword Art Online, whose name I forget. Sword Art Online was his first book, I want to say. He wrote it for some light novel contest, which he actually was disqualified from because the book was too long. And so it's like, okay, I'll just put that out there. And then he actually got published with another series called Excel World. And at that point, the publisher said, hey, people are liking this Excel World thing. I want to clean up this Sword Art Online and get rid of the disgusting sexual stuff that you glop. Look up Sword Art Online glop or don't. That does not exist in any edition of that is available today. But so it's like maybe your first thing isn't super successful, but follow-ups are. In a less disgusting example, the guy who did Scott Pilgrim versus the World had another series whose name escapes me that was a complete bomb when it first came out. But because he was the guy who brought you Scott Pilgrim versus the World, it now enjoys a pretty decent sales life as an anthology because people go, oh, I love Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I wonder what else he did.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll give another example with John Grisham. His first book is called A Time to Kill, and that didn't sell very well when it was first released. But his second book was The Firm, and that did really well. And I've actually read The Firm, and it's a good book. And then they made that into a movie with Tom Cruise, and I will say the movie wasn't very good, but it made a lot of money.
And it brought attention to the book.
Brought attention to the book, and people started paying attention to John Grisham, and they started buying his other books, and a lot of attention started going back to A Time to Kill, and then that started selling really well, and then they made that into a movie with Matthew McConaughey. So it's you never know, like from what will work, and what's going to be popular and what isn't.
Yep. And D Rhino will we'll have question and answer in a second, so I'll hit that at that point.
Yeah,
if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So I think we're getting close to the end here. We can start our Q&A shortly. So what I think we've both been saying is basically motivation kind of has to come from within, but you can do things to help keep yourself motivated. If you're unless you've got to a point where you can do it professionally, writing is part of your life, not your entire life. Time is your enemy. Don't let your internal breaks keep you from writing altogether. And not everybody is the 50 Shades of Grey woman who publishes a fan fiction where they did a search and replace and managed to become one of the top selling books of all time. I need to half research BDSM, I guess. Just like she did.
Yes. Yeah, and if you're having troubles, or if you're having blocks or issues and trying to figure out ideas or where to go with a story, I would say look at other works of fiction, read another book or watch a movie, TV show, even a documentary, real life documentary. You can get some ideas from those as well. So there's plenty of places and plenty of ways for you to keep where you can get your creative juices flowing, and then be able to really tell the story that you want to tell.
Yep.
So okay, so I guess Q&A time, and
we have our first Q.
Yeah.
So I would say that self-publishing on Amazon is probably one of the better ways if you don't want to go through a traditional publishing house. And I've never felt like putting myself through that, because you follow people on writing Twitter and you just people are just constantly talking about the rejections they got. And so it is kind of a shortcut. Now, depending on the publishing house, you can actually do better self-publishing than publishing with them. So the advantage of a publishing house is that in theory, they're promoting your book. Uh, they're in theory they're promoting your book. They handle the cover. They can often provide an editor. They can take care of a lot of the little annoyances that go around writing a book. Now, on the flip side, a small publishing house, they probably aren't selling enough copies to actually have a huge marketing budget. They might buy Facebook ads for your first month, maybe.
Mhm.
Uh, they as soon as you get another person involved, we talked about having a useful voice, but you know maybe the editors can be human too and be flawed too. Maybe you have an editor who's like, oh well, this story is good except for I don't like this character, and like, but in the third book that character matures and becomes a good person, so it's like that's part of the growth. I want to see that in the first book. Who knows if we're going to publish a third.
Mhm. Yeah, and I would say, of course, I'm not publishing on Amazon, but just from a self-publishing standpoint, the biggest advantage of that is you have control over your IP, complete control over your IP. You don't have somebody telling you how to do your story or how or what to put in there or or like Bobcat said, I don't like this character, get rid of them or you know, get rid of them or do something else with them. Like, well, no, I don't want to do that. Like, well, too bad. I'm the one paying your, I'm the one
Right.
paying
Well,
to publish this book. You do
we
what I
gave you
tell
the
you.
advance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the negative aspects of it are, it's on me. Everything is on me. I have to figure out how to promote it. I have to figure out how to. I have to buy cover art. I have to figure out how to get the darn print file to go on. The You have to figure out how to do the. I have to figure out how to make the print file work still on book three.
Mhm.
There's nobody I can hand it off to.
Yeah,
Although there are a bunch of people on Fiverr who can make it much easier to do.
yeah.
Um, and then the follow-up question, I do some marketing. Uh, uh, I do some marketing. Basically, I've tried Facebook marketing. I've given up on that, not because it's ineffective, but because Facebook is constantly like, "Oh, hey, you're starting your campaign. Great. Oh, we've frozen your account due to a violation. What was the violation? Oh, you're good now. Gee, thanks. The launch I was trying to promote is now a week old. Or, gee, thank you.
Yeah.
I guess I set it up for a week and you knocked me out for 4 days. And I actually had one where the Facebook advertising got frozen twice. And now I just don't screw around with that anymore because it's like I'm clearly doing something wrong, or there's something about my book that the algorithm doesn't like, or people don't. Like, maybe people see the devil horns and flag it down because they don't like things with devils. But
Yeah.
so Amazon advertising I have found to be pretty ineffective, although it's hard to tell. I might just be doing it wrong.
Mm.
But you can crank a lot of money into it and not get any results out of it. Although I do notice that while the Amazon ads don't report that they're doing anything, I do sometimes see a pretty modest or a decent uptick in sales in Kindle Unlimited when I do that. So it's like maybe that they're doing okay and are just awful at reporting that they're doing okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's certainly possible.
Hmm.
Um, so the best way I found to advertise is to do what's called serialization, which basically there's websites like Royal Road, Reddit Serials, Scribble Hub. There's some others out there, and post the you post your stories a chapter or two a week or however whatever your workflow is, and then at the end of it, hopefully by the end of it you've built up a pretty decent following of some sort,
Hmm.
and you can then go, hey guys, I'm putting book one up on Kindle. Book two is in the middle of going right now. Um, we're going to take, I'm going to take down everything from book one except for the allowed sample. And oh, you want to read this serial now? Here, Kindle, go. Uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. In
that's a good
my
way to get. That's a good way to get people to know you.
yeah. Yeah. In my case, it's all geared around having a comic book that's being crowdfunded, and I just basically post very regularly on Twitter,
Hmm.
and sometimes on Instagram. Although I'm probably going to start posting on Instagram a little bit more because I want to build that up. And it's just going on different following different other writers who do promo tweets or writers lifts, and just show off my images from the early images from the books, uh, and in once I get like once I get like my mailing list going, I'll reach out to like other comic book creators who have YouTube channels and have pretty good YouTube followings, and go on a live stream and plug it there.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got some other podcasts I'm going to go on probably some point this month, just to try to bump things up a bit.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm probably gonna look at other avenues too. I'm gonna try to get a Substack at some point.
Yep.
I don't know if that.
Substack is super easy, thankfully.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's it's like that's another thing with you really have to be that's a motivation thing too, is going out and talking about your your books and stuff, which for some people that's a little, it can be kind of difficult, putting yourself out there um and talking about what it is you've created. But it's just like a lot of things, that just comes with practice. you know
Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That- And I would say like your best bet is to try to figure out free sources of promotion. So
Mhm.
like it doesn't cost anything to put the story up chapter by chapter, for example. Or if you can make friends with somebody and they want to have you on their live stream, hey, that's also free promotion. Um, Crowdfunding is a very different game than writing. So thankfully, writing a novel is like it's like you have you have your levels of complexity and expense. Self-publishing a novel in terms of making your own stuff is around here. I would say that comics is the next step up, followed
Mhm.
by video and movies, followed by video games.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
and it's yeah, like you were saying, yeah, there's a big cost with it, because in with novels, it's just like you're writing it out, and you're just printing it off, and it doesn't really cost that much. Whereas with comic books, I mean, I've got an artist, I've got a letterer, I've
mhm,
got I got a you know an editor, I've got with Angels Awakening, I had a
mhm.
distributor to pay for the to do the shipping and the supplies and all that stuff, and
Uh, Incidentally, that's another advantage to publishing through Amazon is that they handle all of that.
yeah.
Uh, Also, to to dang it, I had a thought. Also, you might be D Rhino. You might be the first person I can definitively say bought my book because I've been I've been shilling myself on Twitter. So, and I've been on there for 2 years. So, Twitter promotion. There's things I would say that like things that are very visual, like comic books are, especially like a web comic where you can get in there and read some for free is a really excellent thing to promote on there. But novels, maybe Facebook is arguably better, and I should probably use my Facebook page I made myself more often. It's just I hate Facebook so much.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't
uh,
like it either. Yeah.
Twitter is an awful cesspit, but it's actually it's got a very nice interface. It's very obvious what you're doing at any given point.
Right. Yeah.
Facebook, it's like, wait, you've got all these links off to the left here. What?
Yeah. Oh, jeez. Well, we're getting near the end. Does anyone else have any other questions for us? Yeah, we definitely appreciate that.
Yep. And you know what? Just because I like you guys, mind if I steal the screen for a sec?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see here. Time to share. And I want to share this one. So I just got some cute character art from Book of Lilies, one of Yogurt Stripper's friends. It's of one of my favorite characters, Mariko, from my series. Where these come from? Oh, you'll just have to find out when you read it.
Yeah.
That just showed up while we were starting the Q&A section.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that's just neither here nor there. Just a happy circumstance. You might go, DB, why do you buy art? You're writing a novel, and that art doesn't actually appear in the books. The answer is I have a commission addiction. Actually, that's actually part of my motivation. Is it's like it makes the characters feel more real to occasionally just get art of them.
Yeah.
But it also lets me do things like say, gonna just go ahead and steal the screen again for a sec. We'll do it live. And that is not the page I thought I was doing. Is it sharing yet?
Yeah, it's sharing.
Huh, I don't see it at all. That's interesting.
Yeah, D Rhino. We all have that same addiction.
Yes, it's a sickness.
Yes.
It lets me do things. Yeah, I met Yogurt, and I got a cool cover from her that I'll eventually use for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's there's been some good aspects to it. I would say that your best bet if you are going to do art like that is, and this is something that I haven't done, actually figure out how to use it in the stories. The biggest thing I would say is that anime art is like a big turnoff for some people. It's like redheads. I remember hearing a report once that um, it's like it was on some podcast I was watching. Like, hey, I've got good and bad news for the redheads in the audience. Statistically, the average person does not find redheads particularly attractive. However, the people that do, it's practically a fetish. So you'll probably have an easier time finding somebody into you, or you'll have just about as hard a time finding somebody who's into you as the rest of the population. You just might have to strike out a few more times. But the people who like you will seek you out.
Yeah. God. Oh, jeez.
And you know what, DR, I'd be interested to see some of your character art. We can swap that off camera.
Oh yeah.
But yep. Well, remember to like, subscribe, hit the bell button, subscribe to his Tubify, Friendster, MySpace, all the finest social networks. I mean,
Yes.
at this point, if you set up your own MySpace page and did it right, you could be the king of a very small pond.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Because it's still there for some reason.
Yeah, that's hard to believe, man. God. Yeah. Well, when we want to thank all of you for coming out and watching us. We appreciate it and appreciate all the input and
the audience interaction always makes it much more fun.
Yes. Well, with all that said, I'm Daniel Parker. This is Darth Bobcat, aka DB Fastbinder, and we'll see you all next time. Good night, everybody.
Later.